So we're going to do an introduction to the in-hand work. Now Sunny's already done in-hand work, but for the premise of today's video we're going to pretend that he hasn't. So I've got a bridle on, just a snaffle bridle, but you can do this with a cavesson on as well if you need to or if you want to. It doesn't matter either way. The principles are still the same, especially if you've got a younger horse that maybe hasn't had a bit in yet but you want to do some in-hand work with them. So first thing, so you've got your bridle or your cavesson on, you need to have reins that are long enough that they can come back behind the wither easily for later on, not so much for today, but it does help, and that you're able to get a little bit further, so sort of where your leg would be back behind the girth with still contact on the reins. So the first thing I'm going to do with Sunny is I'm going to make sure that I've got a little bit of, not control over his mouth, but that I can relax his jaw, and that, I mean, he's quite relaxed anyway, but that I can get him to lower his head easily. So I take, with my inside hand effectively, I'll hold either quite close up to the bit, or you can put your fingers through the bit. Obviously if you've got the cavesson on you want to just hold up here. And with the opposite, the other hand, the rein is over the outside of the neck as if it's your outside rein. Well, it is your outside rein. If they're quite long, just pop a little loop in them so that you're not going to trip over them, or your horse isn't going to trip over them, and you just keep a bit of steady pressure. But for what we're doing to start with, it's mainly this inside hand, and I'm just keeping, I don't want the reins to be bagging down here, I'm just keeping a little bit of outside rein. So what I'm going to show is getting him to lower his head so that we can ask him to set his neck and to release a little bit. So the nice thing with the in-hand work, something that you can't do when you're riding, is you can actually apply a little bit of downwards pressure. Good boy. So all I'm doing then, I'm not pulling him down, I'm just giving a couple little vibrations, but asking him to come downwards. So I'm putting a little bit of pole pressure and just a couple little squeezes and asking him to come down. Good boy. Obviously Sunny does know this. It might take a few more tries, but don't give up and don't try and start to pull. If all you get to start with is that, and that was very small, but he did give a little bit, good boy, then that's fine, take that and release the pressure. So as soon as they give you a little bit, you need to stop. And whether you take your hand away completely, if you feel you need to do that, that's fine, or whether you just release the fingers and say let him, or let them, good boy, have that reward of release, good boy. So it's nice to get them, you know, if you've got a horse who's quite uptight, it's really hard to work with them in any way when they're tense. So getting them to release and to let go and to go into that forward and down position, you know, it gets them to release all over their back as well as mentally a bit as well. So once you've got that, and sometimes it can be easier to do this when you're walking. So if you're stood still and you're finding you're not getting anywhere, try and go for a walk and do it. Don't worry about too much about anything else, just those same little pressure points. If your horse is dragging you along in the walk, then it's probably not going to help. If they're towing you along and still quite tense, so you might be better off staying at a halt, but again, depends on the horse. So when they're down here, it's easier then, don't stand on me, for you to ask for a little bit of bend. So if same sort of thing, I'm just asking, don't you stomp your feet at me. I'm going to ask for that downwards a little bit again, so that forward and down. Good boy. So just a couple of vibrations. I'm not pulling him. If he's not listening, that's fine. Good boy. And then I'm going to ask him to come round to the left. Only a little bit. And again, I'm just doing some little vibrations to the inside now. Good boy. And I'm just starting to get him to understand that when I put a little bit of pressure onto that left side, he needs to move his head and his neck that way. Now, when you start doing this, you're best to start, next to the fence. If you start a little bit further over, come on, if you start away from sort of a boundary, so if I pop him here, and I quite crudely ask him to do this, he's not going to do it now, but there we go. He's more likely to move his hindquarters, which obviously we don't want him to do it, we just want him to flex and bend through his neck and his head round. We don't want him to drop his ears, so if I bring him back round to where we were, come on. If you notice that they're twisting their head, then they're not flexing correctly, and they're going to put pressure, they're not necessarily pressure, they're going to develop the wrong muscles, and they're going to be leaning on on your hand, if you know, under saddle as well. You stand up a little bit better than that, matey. Good boy. So again, if I ask him to flex to the left again, so a little bit down first, so a couple of little gentle squeezes, good boy. And then I'm going to ask him to come around there. And I don't want to ask for too much at this stage. Good boy. And if they do have a little fidget, that's fine, but just make sure to correct them and say, we want to do it stood still. Good boy. So I'm asking him to come down again. Good boy. And I'm asking him to come a little bit further around this time. Come on. So if I allow my outside rein to get too long, that's when he can break and bend incorrectly and twist his head round. So although you're not necessarily using the outside rein yet, you don't want it hanging down here. You need to have a little bit of a contact to control the outside shoulder. If he breaks and bends too much round, puts too much weight into the outside shoulder, that's when you're going to have an incorrect bend. So we'll do that once more. Good boy, let go. Good boy. And then I'm asking him to come around again. Don't stand on me. And see, he's just gone a little, he's clenched his jaw again, so he's leaning on my hand slightly. But he's still kind of doing what I ask him to. Can you let go? Good boy. I know, it's very hot. Good boy. So I'm watching as well for his ears. I don't want him, see if I can get him to do it too. He's not going to twist his head. But what you will see sometimes, good boy. There, you can just see very slightly his right ear is slightly lower than his left. I mean, I am having to pull him round to really get him to do that. But it means he's using the wrong muscles and he's extending in the wrong place to come round. So you want him to bend laterally and longitudinally, so he's flexing down and around, but not twisting and sort of dropping his outside shoulder. So from the same rein, you can flex the other way as well, and it's good to get them to do this both sides, but also to do it this way. So I'm going to ask him to come down a little bit again. I'm going to take up my outside rein very slightly, good boy, to ask for a little bit of right flexion, but I'm also going to use my inside hand to almost gently push him round a little bit. So he gets used to going away. So he may bring his bow out now because I'm asking him to go into the fence. Good boy. He's getting used to not only me using the outside rein to ask him to move away, but me using a little bit of pressure on my hand to ask him to turn his head. Good boy. So I'm just going to turn him round and we'll do that on the other way round. And then we'll see if we can do those things at walk. If this is all you do in your first session, you just do it at the halt, getting them to release and stretch down and get a little bit of flexion both ways. That's fine, even if you just do 10 minutes, it doesn't matter. Again, it's those basic steps. And whoa, good boy. One more, good boy. So swap sides now. So my right hand is now my inside hand, which I'm not grabbing the thing with. So same principle. We want the outside rein just to stay across the outside shoulder. I'm going to ask him to come down again, and you will find that they have, you know, a good and a bad side, even for the stretching, even though it's the same movement both ways, they may still have that little bit of a mental block of, oh, you're on the other side now, so it doesn't mean quite the same thing. I'm asking him from the right side of his mouth rather than the left side now. So, and what you'll often find, good boy, is that they find it more difficult, good boy, to flex to the right, good lad. And that's normally because before they're born, the way they are in the womb is that they're flexed round to the left. So this right side is all nice and loose and stretched. So flexing round to the left is nice and easy. When you ask them, then to flex round to the right, that left side that has to do the stretching then to allow them to come round is a little bit tighter and a little bit stiffer. So it's no different to us being right and left-handed. If you're right-handed, your right hand is going to be stronger than your left hand. It's the same principle, except theirs kind of starts right from the beginning. And generally speaking, the right rein is usually the worst. If a different scenery. There's good boy, come on. So I'll just do that exercise again. Out here, and oh, good boy. So Sunny's right side is a little bit stiffer. He tends to overflex through his left side. So what I need to watch for Sunny is that he doesn't step backward like he's trying to already, and that he doesn't swing his quarters round to the outside, okay? Those two are the things at this stage, good boy, that they use as a little bit of an evasion to not have to bend and flex and to let go. So you can see this way already, even here, he's dropped his left ear slightly, so his head is like that rather than being like that. No, backwards. Walk on. That's my toe. Walk on. So I just put him back where he was, roughly. So I don't want him to learn he can walk backwards. He loves to walk backwards as it is. So again, I'm going to ask for a little bit of let go, down, good boy, and then I'm going to ask him just for a little bit of flex. And I'm watching his ears. Even if that's all I get for now, that's absolutely fine. He's still hanging on the rein a little bit, so until he releases, I want him to stay there. Stand, no. And see, he wants to fidget now because he's good boy. He's finding that hard, so he wants to move his body in a way that relieves good boy. That's better, good boy. Okay, so, I mean, you can do this in the stable, to be honest. There's no reason why you have to come out here and do it. But it's good to do it in different places anyway. So that would be your starting point, and if it takes you 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 sessions, it doesn't matter. I haven't got anything, sorry. So you can see now where he's bending around to see me, he's got his ears down, or his left ear is lower than his right ear. We don't want that in general. So I'm just going to quickly go over, if they do pick this up well, if they're schooled well and they've got a nice mouth and they understand flexing anyway, then what are you looking at? Then they'll pick this up quite quickly. It's about that release and reward, so they're understanding how the bit works. And say if they've already got that that knowledge, then that's great. So yeah, if you do need to hold a stick, then that's fine. It can get a little bit fiddly when you first start if you've got a stick as well, but you will get used to it. Worst case, just drop it if you get in a bit of a muddle. I've always just started by walking alongside them, which is normally fine on the left rein. Generally you get more problems on the right rein because they kind of go, what the hell are you doing on that side? That's not right. So in preparation for that, maybe just start leading your horse in and out from the field or to its stable on the other side as well. And that'll just make sure they're used to leading from there. Now the issue that sometimes you get with the maybe lazier horses or the less motivated horses is with this, to position yourself in a place where you can use your hand as your leg later on, you have to walk a little bit, especially if you've got a bigger horse, you might have to walk a little bit further back than you would do if you were leading. If I was leading, I would probably sort of lead from about here. You do need to be sort of here, especially if you're little like me and you've only got small arms. You need to kind of be roughly here so you've got the range that you need, which is obviously where the stick comes in as well. You've got a little bit, I've got a longer range then. So the way I start them off walking is same as you've just been doing, either hand, inside hand on the rein and the outside rein across the back as it was. And say if you need to loop the reins so you don't fall over them, that's fine. If you have a stick in your outside hand effectively. Now most people hold it like this. I sometimes struggle with this. I get a little bit, my hands get a bit confused, so I will occasionally actually hold it up here because it's easier for me to then swing it down that way to use from up here than it is for me to swing it that way and use. I find that a little bit hard. So again, personal preference. Just be aware though that some of the horses might not like having a stick up here like this, which they've eaten my whip, unfortunately. So that's how I would hold. So for the time being I will hold it down because I'm not intending to use it much. I have a reasonable contact on my outside rein, so I have the two reins together there. So if I need to, with a little bit of downwards pressure, I can take contact up on that rein, and he's looked to the outside. So what I'm going to do, to get his attention again, I might ask him just to release first before I ask him to walk on. Bit of downwards, good boy. And then walk on. Just use my voice. He's not listening to me, which is fine, so I'm going to get a little tap. I want him to step first, and then I'm kind of following him at the moment, and that's where some of them can struggle if they lack a bit of confidence. We're not going over there, excuse me. If they're lacking a bit of confidence, they might not want to lead. Good boy, I don't want you to stretch yet. Good boy. And at the moment, it's just letting him walk. You don't want to be being dragged. You want them to be walking at your pace. So again, you may need to do some work just in your head collar first to establish the fact that they need to walk at your speed and stop when you stop. So when I get round to the top here, I'm going to ask for a halt. Good boy. So he's giving me a little bit too much inside bend. So this is the way, as I said, he flexes a little bit too much to the inside, and what he'll often do is he'll flex too much to the inside and go out through his outside shoulder. So for him, my outside rein is really important. So as I ask for a halt, I'll ask at this white post. I'm going to lean back slightly and a little, good boy, a little bit of pressure through the reins. No. Ask him to walk on again. Good boy. And obviously the more transitions you do, the quicker they're going to respond, the same as under saddle. Good lad. And see, I'm still asking, so I need to follow him down when I'm asking him to stretch. I can't stay here and be upright if I'm asking him to come down, because I'm gonna jab him in the back of the mouth. I need to follow him down. Good boy. And we'll do a halt here again at this next white post. Wait, pay attention. And whoa, good boy. So again, just brought my body upright slightly. Walk on. Good boy. So you might find as well when you're asking him to walk on to start with that you need to put a little bit of that downwards pressure just to sort of say, you know, walk on, and that's fine. Again, a little tickle with a stick if you need it, but you know, don't go overboard, especially if you've got something that's sensitive. Good boy. And you can start asking a little bit of left flexion. Good boy. Maybe a little bit to the right. Good boy. He says, oh, that's a bit harder. Good boy. And once they're established with that, you can move on to the lateral work. So just sort of short sessions to begin with, so you can start in your stable if you need to. It's safer, if you feel it's safer, and that's fine. And whoa. Good boy.